A few weeks ago, Prince Harry sat down with trauma specialist Dr. Gabor Mate, and while the intimate chat was pitched to viewers as an opportunity to discuss living with loss and the importance of healing, the conversation made a lot of people, including myself, very angry. As to why, let's start with the most obvious: the promotion of drug usage. Prince Harry has enumerated his drugged escapades in his book, earning the ire of people frustrated that he could be so irresponsible while promoting substance use or abuse, however you look at it, in such a callous manner. And in this interview, he takes it a step further, since this time it's in conversation with a physician, offering professional legitimacy to Prince Harry's talk about his usage of cocaine, cannabis, and hallucinogens in his journey of self-healing. Now, the first two substances aside, I understand why Harry would bring up drug usage, since there have been several studies conducted on the impact that LSD in small doses and ayahuasca have had on people suffering from PTSD, since it is hypothesized to help with emotional processing. That said, it's clear that neither Prince Harry and Gabor Mate are the appropriate people to explain this concept, since they pass over it so nonchalantly during the conversation without explaining the science behind the impact of these drugs in the treatment for PTSD and other psychological ailments. Nor do they appropriately caution people against the dangers. Instead, Harry just emphasizes his use of them recreationally first and then their psychological impact, making it obvious that he doesn't treat them with the seriousness that they require, because there are many instances of people suffering and even dying when they have taken hallucinogens. The interview also serves Harry's ongoing desire to monetize his mother, and especially his mother's death. The reason Princess Diana's name has so much weight in the public eye 26 years after her death is because of the massive impact she had socially. Her beauty and her grace aside, the public's unending love for her is a testament to her hard work, empathy, and care in bringing light to the suffering of others. Rarely, if ever, did she talk of her own struggles. She steadfastly used the light that constantly shone on her to bring attention to the people of the world. And for that act of self-sacrifice, the world will love her forever. If only Prince Harry could understand the difference between his definition of acts of service and his mother's. While Diana, save for the one interview, maintained her silence on her personal issues, Harry follows each breaking of silence with another.
Back in my day, Prince Harry wasn't breaking his silence with a bombshell book about the royal family fiddlesticks. Back in my day, Prince Harry was breaking his silence with an Oprah interview, and then he broke his silence with a multi-part Netflix documentary, and the other day he broke his silence on 60 Minutes. In fact, as far back as anyone can remember, Prince Harry has been out there somewhere breaking his silence, and I personally wish him the best. I hope he continues to live a long, healthy life with his wife Meghan, living in privacy, except to come out and break their silence 1 or 2 times a month until the end of time. Hey, it's their silence. What do I care if they break it?
And I'm glad so many people are catching up to the ludicrousness of how Harry continues to present himself to the world as the perpetual victim while vehemently denying his victim status.
Well, I certainly don't see myself as a victim.
A few moments later.
What we call the big T traumas, the terrible things that happen, or the difficult things that happen, such as death of a parent, a divorce, conflict in the family. And then there's what we call the small T traumas, which is not about bad things happening that shouldn't have, but the good things not happening that should have. And that's the being touched and held and understood and heard. And
so that's all 6 then?
Well, you got them all.
I got them all.
I know, you got them all. So when you say you had this...
With the proceeds from his book, Prince Harry could be setting up a fund to provide free therapy to the most vulnerable people. He could be setting up support groups for people who have lost a parent at a young age, or sitting down with people struggling to overcome the trauma of being raised in a broken home. But Harry doesn't do any of that. All of this public plumbing he's doing into the depths of his vulnerabilities are to line his and his wife's pockets. And worst of all, Princess Diana's younger son continues to evoke her death in justification for all of his actions, including trading his and his family's privacy, all in the name of healing. I will give him some credit. Yes, it is useful to talk about issues. Yes, it's important to start the conversation to encourage others to recognize and dive into their struggles. I don't have a problem with that. I do, however, have a problem with why Prince Harry continues to be vulnerable, as he puts it. Again, he says it's to help others, to serve others, but time and time again, he comes back to denigrating his family and the institution that he was a part of, and clarifying yet again that, like his mother, he too didn't feel like he belonged.
I always felt slightly different to the rest of my family. I felt strange, and I know that my mum felt the same.
You know, just in case over the last 5 minutes, if the audience has forgotten that he is in fact Princess Diana's son.
So this is my mum. You never even met her.
And that both he and his wife are just like Diana.
So much of what Meghan is and how she is so similar to my mum. She has the same compassion, she has the same empathy, she has the same confidence.
And their son stares at a picture of Diana and calls out to her by saying, Grandma Diana.
One of the first words that he said, apart from Mama, Papa, it was then Grandma, Grandma Diana.
And their daughter has Diana's
I
eyes.
see a lot of my mum in Lily. She's very Spencer-like. She's got the same blue eyes.
Blue eyes.
And that William can suck it because he looks less and less like his mother with each passing year.
I looked at Willie, really looked at him, maybe for the first time since we were boys. I took it all in. His familiar scowl, which had always been his default in dealings with me, his alarming baldness, more advanced than my own, his famous resemblance to Mummy, which was fading with time, with age. It's pretty cutting.
Not to mention the comparisons of how Diana was hunted down for dating someone who isn't white.
My mother was chased to her death while she was in a relationship with someone that wasn't white.
And how Meghan and he are being hunted down, and that the paparazzi that Meghan calls on herself all the time, I might add, definitely want Meghan dead.
They're not going to stop until she dies. Potentially lose another woman in my life. Like, the list is growing.
And want Harry to suffer as another woman is wrenched from his life, just like Diana.
Diana's
My mother, my mum with my mum, my mother, your mother. My mum, my mother, my mum from my mum, my mother with my mum's Diana's boy. My mum, mother, my mum.
Dear God, we get it. And this brings me to the next sore point, the betrayal of his family. From Harry's sit-down with Oprah, both during the interview and the documentary, The Me You Can't See, to this dreadful book, he has been sticking the knife into his father and his brother for years, laying their vulnerabilities, private griefs, issues, and conversations bare for the world to pick over. And in this conversation, Harry got a taste of his own medicine when Dr. Mate was quick to diagnose him with several afflictions based on his reading of Spare. The defensiveness in Harry was undeniable as he constantly eyed the lengthy list of diagnoses.
Before we go on to the list of, I can see there's a long list. Back to the list.
So back to your...
But also, hang on, back before you go to the list.
But to come back to you, young man.
Back to the list. Hugely empathetic. Sorry, back to the list.
And felt growingly uncomfortable trying to explain himself while Mate just kept cutting him off to interject with yet another observation. The whole conversation really highlighted to me the worst part of seeking therapy. Therapy is and can be an incredible tool for an individual to acknowledge their issues, grow from their toxic traits, and learn to be better friends, partners, parents, and family members. But an unexpected side effect that even Harry brought up during the conversation is that therapy can create a distance from your family. And there's an important reason why. Therapy is intended to be very self-affirming. The therapist sitting across from you needs to be your advocate, to see your perspective, to comfort you in your pain, and help you gain confidence in your efforts to recover from your past traumas, just like Dr. Mate was doing for Prince Harry. But this process can often come at the cost of your family, as therapists can help you see them as the perpetrators of said traumas. An example of this played out during the interview when Prince Harry talked about his childhood, saying that it was good. And I think this was a genuine effort from Harry to feel gratitude for everything he has had. But it's quickly contradicted by Dr. Mate. Take a listen.
I did. I had an incredible childhood as far as I can remember. Elements of it. And elements of it were incredibly painful. You're about to tell me that...
I'm shaking my head here because when I read your book, it was a story of deprivation. But if I think of a little child who's born into a marriage where there's a lack of love between the parents, where there's conflict, where there is, again, this is multi-generational, we're not blaming anybody, when there's infidelity, where the father who clearly loves his kids, but can't help but be emotionally distant because that's what he was raised, where people are not held and hugged. When Queen Elizabeth goes on a long royal tour, and when she comes back, she greets her 5-year-old son by shaking her hand. So what is it about the lack of holding and touching and cuddling?
Okay, so no childhood is perfect, just like no parent is perfect. And to me, I know many people will agree there is nothing more traitorous than to share intimate aspects of your family's failings with the world. Because no matter how much you explain or justify, at the end of the day, people don't know your family well enough to understand the full context of their behavior. The absolutely embarrassing example of this is Harry giving voice to people who aren't his family and giving them the opportunity to talk against them, like he and Meghan did when they invited Tyler Perry to speak up during their Netflix documentary. What the hell does Tyler Perry understand about Prince Harry's family? All he has ever heard has been one side of the story, from Harry and Meghan. Another example of this is when Dr. Mate references how Queen Elizabeth greeted a young Prince Charles when she returned from tour, a moment captured by the cameras. He used this moment to reinforce his belief in the trauma-inducing dynamics of the family, further justifying Harry's pain and desire to turn away from them. But there is no consideration of the context of the time. Therapy, trauma, healing from past wounds, these are all new concepts. People raising their children a century ago weren't aware of what was optimal or what behavior would cause issues for their children. And even though Harry, along with every other celebrity these days, talks about how difficult the state of the world is today, the economic and political stability is unprecedented compared to the state of the world 100 years ago. It's in this prosperous, mostly peaceful environments that concepts such as "it's important to hug your children" have developed. And it's in these peaceful environments that we have the liberty to be thoughtful about how to raise our children. Do you think my grandparents cared about that idea when they were dealing with the fallout from the India-Pakistan partition? Did Americans and Europeans care about this idea when they were ravaged by devastating wars? What Harry lacks is any sort of context. He and the rest of us should feel incredibly lucky to have access to unlimited information today, as well as the opportunity to work on our issues and not pass them on to our children. But this is a luxury our parents and ancestors have not had. And instead of approaching them with understanding and using his newfound learning to bridge a gap and understand them further, he's only deepened his divide, repeatedly asserting that they are stuck in a toxic system and don't even realize that they are trapped. And honestly, that's the worst perspective people can take post-therapy, where they look down on others and feel smug self-satisfaction for all the ways that they've grown and all the ways they can identify that their family has supposedly stayed in these toxic patterns.
But they only know what they know. And that's the thing. I've tried to...
Or what they're told.
Or what they're told. And I've tried to educate them through the process that I have been educated.
Because is it like being in a big royal bubble?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, the therapy just becomes a tool for self-aggrandization. And I will say that Harry should be careful with the stones that he casts, considering the glass-like state of his Montecito mansion. Yes, he's in therapy. Yes, he is making sure to hug his children, but parenting is hard, and no matter how much we all endeavor to be good at it, we will inevitably mess up, and our children will have a litany of issues that they will be tempted to blame on us.
Your relationship with your father?
There's a lot to work through there. You know, I feel really let down because he's been through something similar. He knows what pain feels like, and Archie's his grandson. But at the same time, you know, of course, I will always love him, but there's a lot of hurt that's happened.
Let's hope, Prince Harry, that your children are a lot more forgiving of your errors than you have been of your father's. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.